Steve, thank you very much. And I know some of you may have some questions that you'd like to ask. What I think we'll do is we'll save 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the panel, and you can ask questions of anyone on the panel. So with that, let's turn our attention to more local concerns. Steve mentioned the state energy program that California was allocated $226 million. That funding is administered by the California Energy Commission. And in fact, on February 11th, 2010, the California Energy Commission announced $110 million in grants. Unfortunately, Southern California didn't do too well in those grants at all, and in fact, Orange County, where I live and work, got nothing. So we clearly have a little bit better job to do down here in Southern California to make sure that we get our hands on some of that grant money. We're going to turn now to Eric Garcetti, the president of the Los Angeles City Council. Eric, thank you very much for being here, and would you give us a little bit of the local perspective on this?
Of course. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Steve. I'm sure none of the money you didn't get has anything to do with the fact that Steve's from Northern California. It's purely coincidental, and he told me he's going to take care of that, so don't worry. But I think we're in excellent hands with Steve Spinner, and I want to thank you, Steve, for your leadership, not only as a Californian being at the point of the spear on what we're trying to do, but also the background that you bring to making sure that this is done in an accountable and an intellectual way. It is one of these exciting moments we've waited most of our lives for, and suddenly when it's here, I think some of us turn around and say, oh my gosh, like we're running this now. And knowing that there are great people that are running the implementation of this gives me a lot of confidence that where we are going is going to set an example, even though these are very difficult and uncharted waters that we're figuring out day to day. So congratulations on that work.
Nice comments like that, I can't hand a check.
Right.
Southern California.
And Orange County, don't worry about them. It's all about LA. And it's great to be here in the Broad Theater, and thank you for hosting us to Santa Monica College. You know, I just went for a great spin outside in an EV, enjoyed myself going around the corner here, saw Terry O'Day, my friend who's the council member here in Santa Monica, who started EV Rentals, which was the first, I think, rental company in the world, maybe the country for sure, that rented EVs the first generation when we did this about 12 years ago. And it's exciting to see the progress that we make, because it's not that history is coming full circle, it's actually kind of going in spiraling loops forward. And to see that progress, even as we have to remind ourselves of places we've been, but how we can do it better, it's quite a moment. But I want to start with that car ride, because I was reminded of something that a friend told me recently when we were looking at the stimulus package and we were looking at the big three automakers. And it was somebody who was taking, you know, a very pointed point of view that was saying, you know, when the Model T came out in America, Ford was one of about 100 car companies at the time. We look back and assume that, you know, the big guys started big, but it was a time of incredible innovation and competition in the car industry that was coming to, you know, not just America, but the world at the time. And he said, instead of focusing on propping up the big three, which we can argue about whether that was right or wrong, he said, why aren't we looking at this next generation of the next 100 potential car companies, the next Ford, the next GM, the next Chrysler that is going to be born in someone's garage, that's going to come out of a small manufacturing facility somewhere here in Southern California and grow and change the world. And I wanted to kind of frame my points in that context, because I think this is a very exciting moment, but we have a little bit of a crisis of confidence, not only because of the economic downturn, but because we're starting to be an older country. We've thought of ourselves always as a very new country compared to who our main competitors used to be in Europe, but the kind of resurgence of a new Asia has reminded us in some ways that the ways we do things are a lot less nimble, a lot less innovative, and sometimes much slower, or most of the time much slower, and that the dreams that we've had that defined who we are, at least in this region, seem to have been tempered. And I would challenge us to go back to who we are and to kind of reclaim what has made Southern California and California great. I was listening to Jerry Brown the other night speak, and he said, think of any other group of 38 million human beings on the face of this earth that have as much influence and who innovate as much as they do anywhere. You probably can't come up with 38 million human beings that can equal what Californians are and what we do. And it's in that context that we have to remind ourselves that with that incredible creative capital that we have and that incredible history and all the assets that we have, how can we then weave ourselves through tangled bureaucracies, regulations, desire to be accountable and to make sure that money is not squandered, but also get out of the way to have the most innovative and breakthrough technologies emerge to drive our economy. Here in Southern California, we have probably the most diverse economy in America, and we've been very good at recovering in bad times, even though we feel the downturns more strongly than other places. And right now, our official unemployment being at about 13%, our unofficial, meaning folks that are no longer on the rolls because they've been out of work so long, or they're just doing part-time work and want full-time work. It's about 1 out of 4 of our neighbors, 1 out of 4 residents here. That said, I do think that we have all the ingredients to be able to come back in this diverse economy. People who visit LA figure it's the entertainment industry out here, which was only a top 10 industry in the last few years. We have, it used to be aerospace, but when you look between trade and tourism and technology, the manufacturing, we're the manufacturing center of America, even though that's obviously an area that in America is declining. We have an incredibly diverse base to build from. So how does this tie into clean technology and what we need to be doing, what we can be doing? And I really value the opportunity to come here and have this conversation. I think it was Emerson who said, the years tell us things the days cannot see. And for those of us that are working in the kind of day-to-day work, it's these rare moments when we can pause and punctuate and look back at what are we doing right and be critical about what we can be doing better. And Brian Cave has been a really important driver in this conversation, both in public spheres, but even privately with me as we were looking at our grants to show me the port application that misspelled the word stimulus on the cover page. Those things that we can do to always be better and to make sure at least the basics are taken care of are very important. So thank you to Brian Cave as well. 2 or 3 points I would make. One is that LA and Southern California and California, if you want to take the entire state, are very well poised. We have certain natural advantages. Our geography. We're obviously a place, whether it's alternative energy and we want to look at sunlight, you want to look at our wave power off the coast, you want to look at geothermal, you want to look at our ability in dense urban settings to take things like trash and to convert that into energy. We have probably the best laboratory anywhere in the world. We have the Tehachapi's, which in the native language that it's named after means strong wind. It's the best onshore place to do wind in the world. We obviously have the Mojave. We've got transmission lines next to places where we can put solar farms, geothermal that's not far away, and our ability to tap into that is really a challenge that others would love to have that don't have that infrastructure in place. Secondly, it's our intellectual capital. Caltech, the university that creates more patents than any other university in the United States. The UC system is second when you combine all of their campuses. UCLA, USC, Stanford, and Berkeley. When we put together what's coming out of our intellectual centers and who is attracted to study here and then to start up here, I think we probably have the envy of the world as well. We are exporting that. We need certain changes to make sure we can have immigration policy that continues to allow students to come, et cetera. But that's our second advantage. And then third, I would say that we have some structural advantages, and I'll speak very parochially about the city of LA, where we have the largest municipal utility in the United States of America. So a lot of what we'd want to play with, where we try to bring in private sector folks, we can actually help the private sector with our public power and innovate. And I'll point back to a decade ago when the first generation of electric vehicles came. It was precisely because we had a Department of Water and Power that we still have a charging infrastructure. And I've driven electric cars for 11 years now that I can plug in all around the city, that's still there. And as we're looking at the next generation, our ability to use those sorts of assets and resources, the largest port in the United States, where 43% of our seaborne goods now come into America, which is linked to every single congressional district in this country. As I remind folks on the Hill when I'm there, we can actually point to somebody's district in Maine and tell them how many jobs are dependent on LA Long Beach Port. And our airport, which, as a point, starting and an ending point airport is the busiest in the country. We have these assets that we can use if we channel them in a strategic way. Right now, I think what we're going through with the stimulus money, and the largest new chunk of that money is around our energy efficiency block grant, which is a place where we can really unleash a lot of creativity, and yet I would say if we're self-critical throughout the country, because thank goodness DOE has put those deadlines on us, because I think it is important for American public to see the effect of the stimulus money, and it does take about 2 years. You're exactly right about that. We should be collaborating and sharing more of what we do with those monies, because it's very easy to do things, and they're just as critical and sometimes even bigger bang for the buck to do things like retrofits of existing commercial and residential buildings. We're doing that. I remember meeting with Secretary Chu about 2 weeks after he was sworn in with the mayor and a couple other people, and it was the best meeting by far. It was was like the guy who's the smartest in the room was actually in charge and knew where we should go. And he said, you know, that's nice. Quit bragging about what LA is doing. I want you to do these two things, and paint your roofs white, and make sure you're measuring the energy output of buildings, not just the design with LEED certified buildings. You know, very, very smart points.